You want to see him on the pitch because he is an exciting player. But it depends what they're going to get out of him and Cudjoe and McGilvery. And if any of that three miss significant game time, and Cudjoe's already missed his testimonial, it's already going to be out for the first few weeks of the season. It's not looking great for him, who missed a lot of time last season too. I just don't see them scoring enough points over the whole season to be competing with the other top sides. I've got Darnell McIntosh as my rising star because I do think he's a winger who can do something. It just edged out Jacob Wardle, just because Jacob Wardle's story is good, but I don't know how good he's going to be. It's great that he's back from his injury. He can now head into his 20s as a young man and get some actual game time under his belt, which is important for him. But Darnell McIntosh is ready to get in that first team. I like you, think they'll do okay in the Cup. I've got them pegged having an agonising extra time loss to the Leeds Rhinos at the John Smiths, I think.
That's very specific, fair enough.
Sometimes you got to throw out these say what predictions, haven't you, Tom? But I just don't see them scoring enough points over the course of the season to win enough games to do well enough, unfortunately.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, well, we've got some fan predictions in. Mark Wilson said his season finishing in the top four. Wilkinson, forgive me, not Mark Wilson. He would be far more at home talking about Bradford Bulls. Mark Wilkinson says top four.
Yeah, Paul Michael Craig says 8th without really pushing for the semi-finals. Challenge Cup is our only hope for silverware.
Alan Witt says a realistic 8th finish, but hoping for more. I'm confident they won't be in the middle 8s. If they can keep Mamo fit for the season, they should be a little more entertaining to watch. Might even get on Sky. Some players can play multiple positions, but hopefully Rick Stone gets the right balance. Defence needs to tighten up like it was in 2013.
Tony Townend said a solid top 6 finish based on a low injury season with a good cup run and added bonus.
Barney, presumably the dinosaur, says they'll challenge for the top 4.
James Blakeborough says, more in keeping with the second half of last season, hopefully a better season without the injuries will see us breach the top 6 and a real crack at the Challenge Cup again to get some much needed bums on seats at the Kirklees Stadium.
There you go. Nate Bradley says, fighting for the top 4. So ambitious from Mr. Bradley.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people are realistic that probably the best they can hope for is a solid top 8 season and a bit of a cup run. Yeah, so they're in your boat, aren't they?
Absolutely. Okay, that takes us on to Salford Red Devils then, who finished the regular season in 4th place last year, but drifted away to 7th during the Super 8s and made an appearance in the Cup semi-finals. Players on the way out of the AJ Bell then, Mark. Matty Wilkinson has gone to Oldham. Olsi Krasnicki has joined the Toronto Wolfpack. Adam Warren, we were just talking about, has moved to Huddersfield, whilst his brother Jordan has gone to Hull KR. Mick Dobson's retired. Connor Williams has gone to Hull KR. Liam Bent and Todd Carney have disappeared, although Todd Carney's resurfaced down under, hasn't he, somewhere? Tweed somewhere like that. And Ben Murdoch-Masilla has joined the Warrington Wolves for a transfer fee. Into the club then, Darrell Alpertz from the Newcastle Thunder, Gavin Benyon from Rochdale, Levi Nzugu from St Helens, Jack Littlejohn from the West Tigers, Luke Burgess comes up from the Catalan Dragons, and Ben Nakubuwai from the Gold Coast Titans, Mark.
Yeah, key man for me for the Salford Red Devils is Mark Flanagan. We talked in the season wrap-up last year about how basically their form dropped off a cliff once he got injured and they never were able to recover. So getting him back in the side, him performing to the level he's performed at the last 2 years for the Salford side, and showing some good leadership quality in that 13 position where he's an all-round 13, not many of them in the game now. I think that will be important to this Salford side, so that's why I've made him my key man. But there's been a big transition on and off the pitch in the off-season, not in the coaching setup but in the club setup, in where the finances lie maybe, and certainly on the pitch. I really hope it works out for them because, and I want the crowds to flow to the AJ Bell, but I think they're going to be watching a losing side this year that might even struggle to hold on to Super League status pending what restructures happen, because I have them finished in the bottom 4. I've probably got them 10th or 11th, either them or Hull KR in those positions, and I've got them playing in the £1 million game. I'm just not sure if they can pull out a win against Toronto or Lee in that game or not. In fact, no, I think they might be playing against Steve. I think I might have them playing against Hull KR in that game.
Right.
Wow. No, Hull KR are fine. They're playing in the £1 million game. They might go down. Quarterfinals of the Cup, maybe. I think they've taken a couple of punts on players from the lower league, but they've definitely weakened the squad at halfback with Dobson and Carney going, and Littlejohn, who I don't really think has ever proved himself enough to say that he can come in and lead this side. Robert Louis is a bit of an enigma on the field and a bit of a wine beater off the field. And they've lost the star man from last year in Ben Murdoch-Masilla, so the squad has weakened. They do have a pretty good forward pack, I think, and some hard-working backs, if not high, Wellham, Johnson, they put in a shift, that sort of thing. But I'm not expecting them to score many tries and stuff. I think if they can find an effort, get their way to having a good team spirit, they may surprise me this year. But I still think even a surprise to me would be 9th, if I'm honest. And they don't really have much in the way of young players.
No.
They've not, and the ones they do aren't necessarily of highest of calibre. Levy and Zungu, I think, he's played a bit at Saints, bit in France for Toulouse. Did he play for?
Yeah, it's interesting that their youngest player is a lad that they signed from Toulouse, from St Helens.
But I've not got him as my rising star. I picked out Ben Nakubawai, who came off the bench, made a lot of metres in the World Cup for Fiji, so be exciting to see him play. What say you?
Similar to you, I think 10th in the regular season. I think they'll be alright in the Super 8s. I think they'll finish in sort of 2nd or 3rd in that. I don't really see them being troubled in the way that Hull KR will, but this is a very, very shallow squad, and typically of Salford over the last 10 years, they do not have a youth setup to speak of, so they're going to be not able to lean on that if and when the injuries do come. And it's a very average squad. They've lost some quality, and I don't think they've replaced it. My key man is Jack Littlejohn, not necessarily because I think he's going to have a blinding season, but I think his performances will be key to Salford, because he's going to be taking that Mick Dobson role, isn't he? He's going to be the lad that organises and runs the structure, and they're going to do those set plays. There's 2 blocks of players, and Robert Louis is going to work his way in the middle of them. Robert Louis isn't going to do a great deal of marshalling around the field, so what Jack Littlejohn has to come in and do is be that marshal, and I'm not sure yet that he's Mick Dobson. I just think he might be Mark Herbert, to be honest, so we'll see how he does. My rising star is a young man called Daniel Murray, though, who's a prop forward who spent some time on loan at Bradford Bulls. Big lad, wears a scrum cap, very honest, hard-working prop forward, so he will fit in well with the other big, honest, hard-working prop forwards at Salford and might get some game time this year. So he's one to keep an eye out for. I don't have a right lot more to say than that, really. I don't suspect they'll do particularly well in the Cup. So sadly for people at the AGFL, because there's been no big spending this year, and it's been conspicuous in its absence now that the doctor has stepped aside, that the club is obviously running itself in a different, more fiscally responsible way, probably through necessity. So we'll have to see how things go for them. I think it could. This is my best possible prediction for Salford as well, really. I think there's potential for the season to go nosediving if they're not careful. So, they might have the nicest kit, but they've got the biggest troubles ahead.
And I do think in Ian Watson they've got a decent coach.
Of course, but you can't polish a turd strictly back, can you?
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think he's got enough high calibre players. You look down that squad, and if I look and who would I put into the Wigan squad, well, I wouldn't pick anyone out of their squad to put in the Wigan first team, probably over maybe Junior Sal, because we're weak at centre. But so I'm sure clubs of fans of other top clubs will be looking at it the same sort of way.
I think you're finally going to run out for the 2/3 of the season when Lockers is injured, though, wouldn't you?
That's fair. That's a fair point. Okay, so getting in touch with us about Salford, we start with Dan Hull. He thinks they'll make the top 6.
There you go. Martin Silcock says top 8.
A pseudonym. Biv Geldof.
Oh, have the courage. Yeah, fair enough.
Thinks they'll be champions. So obviously there was jokes along the line there and all them predictions, I'm sure.
I think I'd be.
He must have been the person who picked them to win everything.
There you go. Terence, terribly posh name for I'm sure he's Terry to his friends. He thinks they'll make the playoffs now.
And Paul Whiteside, one of our friends from the Devil in the Detail podcast, Salford Red Devils fan podcast, he's hoping for the top 8 because the middle 8 looks a bit tricky.
It does look a bit tricky.
That's a realistic assessment from Paul, I think.
It does. Okay, so I've forgotten whose turn it is now to run through ins and outs. I think it's yours, Mark, as we head down to the DW.
It is me to run in.
Wigan Warriors.
So, Wigan have had relatively small squad turnover. Nick Gregson's gone to Lee initially on loan, but won't expect to see him back. Gabe Fell and Kyle Shelford have departed to Swinton on permanent deals. The main departures are Michael McAlorum to Catalans and Anthony Gellan, who did get that deal at the New Zealand Warriors, so let's hope he gets some game time. In their place, Gabriel Hamlin has come in as a young forward from South Sydney, and Dan Sargentson is back from the Gold Coast and raring to go. Last season, of course, in the regular season, Wigan finished a very disappointing 7th, moved up a spot after the Super 8s, but didn't break that top 4, and they were runners-up in the Cup, a forward pass away and a video referee's decision away, but still a second best in that competition. What do you think they will be this season?
Okay, key man for me this year, Sam Tompkins. Given the departures that have gone on and given the way that they're structuring your entire team, I think it's fairly obvious, but 1, 6, 7 and 9 are going to be really key for you lot in terms of your performances and in terms of how you go this season. But it's time for Tompkins to step in now. He's had that first season back, he's got over the injuries. I think he needs to step up and be that leader. For me, because I think Tommy Luluai, again, is coming down the end of the bell curve in terms of his prime, so his contribution on the pitch in terms of output may not be as high, whilst his leadership will certainly be there. I'm certain that they have no issues putting Sam Powell in at hooker for the vast majority of games, given the way he did that when Michael McAloran was out for the season a year or two ago. But Tompkins' leadership is going to be absolutely key to this Wigan squad, especially when you've got so many talented youngsters in and around it. It's good to have that level of experience. My rising star, perhaps unsurprisingly, is Tom Davies, an absolute phenomenon last season with ball in hand for you. I've got you finishing 5th this season though, Mark. I think teams will underestimate you, but I do think there are 4 better groups 1 to 17 than the Wigan Warriors this year. You will always have tremendous strength in depth, and that's always going to be to Wigan's credit, but I just hope that it isn't tested quite so much this season as it was last year, because that strength in depth really did get down to the bottom end of, or to the not the darker depths, but it got right into your youth system, didn't it, last year? So I suspect that you'll do better based solely upon the law of averages dictating that your injuries won't be as bad. I don't know. Stable. It's been a stable off season in terms of.
You have us winning the cup.
I think. Well, that's it. I do think on a one-off basis, this team can go out and beat people. But I do think there'll be teams that are consistently better than Wigan over the piece. So I'm going for an improved season, finishing 5th.
Okay.
I'm winning the cup though, so silverware.
I've got Wigan making the top 4. I actually think after the Super 8s we'll finish 2nd, and then we'll triumph over St Helens in the grand final.
Great.
I'm not predicting us for glory in the cup though. I'm thinking maybe a quarter final or something there. Some unlucky decision going against us.
Well, that doesn't tend to happen much in your opinion, does it? So,
in terms of, I think Wigan need to start well to get the fans back on side after an underwhelming off season for many people. I'm not bothered. I'm not too critical. I'll miss Gelling, and I'll miss McAloran in many ways, but I'm not too gutted about the turnover there. I don't think there's a huge drop off in quality in the squad, but lots of people aren't happy about it, and we had a really disappointing end for 2017. That Wakefield game at the end of the season was one of the lowest I've ever felt at a Wigan game, just because it didn't feel like the passion and dedication and commitment was quite there. And I think that's because the players knew the season was over from what had happened in the other results that weekend, and it just drew them down a bit and knew that they only had themselves to blame for a terrible season. But we have a number of high-class wingers. Don Manfredi's expected back at some point in the future, but even without him, we've got 3 of the top wingers from last year's Super League competition, all capable of scoring at a try a game. We have the best starting back row in the competition, I would say. It's maybe there's a debate to be had with some other teams, but when you go Farrell, Bateman, O'Loughlin as your starting back 3 of the scrum, I would say that's as good as any in World Rugby League. They have a lot of players with winning experience. We do need to get a break with key injuries. We're going into the season with a pretty fit squad. There's a cloud over Sean O'Loughlin's calf, but hey, what's new? John Bateman's got a finger injury. He'll miss a little bit of time, but hopefully not too much time. And Jack Wells has picked up an injury. So there may be depth questions at second row, and that's where the large but young back end to the squad will be challenged. But I just think, I think maybe overall the squad looks as thin as any Wigan squad in nearly a decade has, but I think that's been the case for this year and last year, and what we keep seeing is that talent moving forward. We do need to solve the 2 big problems of goal kicking. Now we've had Charlie Hodgson in doing a lot of work, and it looks like Sam Tompkins is going to be first choice there, but we also have Sam Powell, who's a decent goal kicker. Jake Shorrock's back on the on the mend, who's a good goal kicker if he's called upon. So there's hope there. And we need to learn what to do when Sean Otlin on the field, because more and more he won't be on the field, certainly almost